It's funny because you said that it was a struggle for you to get through House Bunny, but it was kind of a struggle for me to get through this movie. But let's tee it up.
I'm really shocked, and I think this is going to be a great episode because of the difference of opinion that we have. I think this is the first difference of opinion one that we've had.
And I mean, I'm not a hater at all of any rom-com. I love all
Yeah.
rom-coms. I
Yeah.
literally, even the ones where I question it, I love.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. It's not one that like when you see it scrolling on like Netflix, like what to watch next, you're not like, oh, I'm gonna put that one on again.
Yes, but I
You
will
rewatch.
say when I first saw the trailers, I was intrigued, right? Because the trailers made it seem like it would be a really good rom-com, especially in the modern day. And I think you and I've talked about this, but the bar has been kind of lowered for modern day rom-coms compared to the ones that we consider the classics. But basically, I don't think it was a rom-com that I wanted to keep watching for years to come, if that makes sense.
Instead of keeping our viewers waiting, do you want to introduce it or do you want me to introduce it?
You should introduce because you love it.
Okay, love is a very strong word. I want to say, considering my controversial opinion from the first episode, saying I haven't seen a good rom-com that I liked from 2015 on, this one was one that I really did enjoy. Today, we are reviewing or talking about Anyone But You, starring Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell. This movie came out on December 11th, 2023. And the synopsis is: despite having an amazing first date, B, Sydney Sweeney, and Ben, Glenn Powell's initial attraction quickly turns sour when they unexpectedly find themselves at a destination wedding in Australia. The pair pretend to be the perfect couple to keep up with appearances. This received a 53% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I mean, I will say that I read somewhere recently because I wanted to see what it took for rom-coms to be reviewed by Rotten Tomatoes, what kind of criteria. And I think that in general, rom-coms have the bar set a little bit lower than other movies. I think I read this somewhere. And it kind of makes sense because I think critics are really looking for innovativeness because with rom-coms, everybody knows that you're kind of watching it for a feel-good experience, kind of a laugh, but also some kind of romantic quality. So I thought it was really interesting when I kind of read this article about how people criticize rom-coms, and it's really more so of how innovative the rom-com is. 53%, I think is pretty good for a rom-com.
I'm pretty aligned with that review. I will say when I first saw this movie, because this is my second time watching it for this plot for this episode. The first time I absolutely loved it. I was like, yes, this is amazing. I'm so happy. Like I finally a 2015 or earlier rom-com is one that I'm here for. I love it. I thought the cast did a great job. The casting was great. It was witty, the comedic element, obviously very predictable because it is a rom-com, but now watching it a second time, I definitely was a little bit more critical.
I mean,
And
okay,
and noticed some things where I was like, that would not happen in real life. That's false. That's false. So I'm excited to go dive in with you.
okay, because you like this movie more than I do. We were texting back and forth as we watched this film separately, just how you like the movie. But for me, I think I've already kind of told you, but this is the second time that I watched this movie. The very first time I watched this movie, I think I was very intrigued by the trailer, not gonna lie. I mean, Sydney Sweeney, Glenn Powell, two really A-list stars that I was looking forward to in a rom-com. And they made, I don't know if it was me, but they made the trailer seem as if it was more R-rated than the actual movie was. It wasn't that R-rated for me.
No, but there were some things where I was, this is not okay. Like it, because in my opinion, rom-coms should be somewhat family friendly.
Wait, what part do you think? Because I thought Bridget Jones' Diary had some moments where it could have been, this is not family friendly.
You know what? You're right. No, rom-coms are not family friendly. Take that back.
No, I
I take
mean, I get where
No, no,
you're
you're
going
right.
though.
Now that I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking about all the sex that's in all these rom-coms and like the pent-up energy, the joke. Yeah, no, they're not really family friendly. No.
I mean, so let's get to the point where I think the main theme of today's talk could really be around Shakespeare and how this movie was heavily influenced by Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing play. And so I think I could talk about this movie and how it makes sense that it's off of a Shakespeare play now that I've watched it for a second time. And I would enjoy that rather than if I were to just judge this movie based off of, if it weren't Shakespeare related. I like the movie a lot more because it is Shakespeare related, if that makes sense.
So I had no idea that this was based off of Shakespeare until you had texted me that. Then, when I was watching the movie, when I saw the quote on the wall when she's coming out of his apartment, I was like, of course, there's a Shakespeare quote. This makes so much sense. And then at the stadium, there is the Much Ado About Nothing on the stadium. And I was like, why didn't I not put this together before? Like, what's wrong with me?
No, I don't think I knew it the first time I watched it, but then when I did some research on it, that's when I knew because I don't know that a lot of people know Much Ado About Nothing is a famous Shakespeare play.
So I know nothing about Much Ado About Nothing.
Me too.
So I don't know if you know, or you could talk to it or talk about how it translated into the movie just a little bit, and then we could dive in more to the movie.
Yeah, well, so I did a little bit of research because Much Ado About Nothing is a blueprint for basically the modern enemies to lovers. So I think this was one of the first Shakespeare plays that was the enemies to lovers kind of theme, which I find is probably a really good storyline for any rom-com. So a lot of what this movie Anyone But You was about was, these two characters who have sort of a Pride and Prejudice moment in the beginning. Can we just talk about how there was such a big misunderstanding after that, first date, which cringe was how I felt the entire time watching because it was so unrealistic. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, so I think there was a Pride and Prejudice moment, which I know is not Shakespeare, but still, I think that is a really good hallmark of any rom-com movie is the misunderstanding bit. And then there was the enemies to lovers bit that was more Shakespeare. So I think two killer hallmark kind of themes that make any love story great in this movie. You know how I feel about this movie. I don't love it as much as a classic My Best Friend's Wedding or anything that is from the 2000s.
Hold on. I need to cut you off there because it's funny that you mentioned My Best Friend's Wedding, because the heartthrob of My Best Friend's Wedding, who I would argue is an OG rom-com king,
Mulroney?
came back and was the father in this rom-com.
I love him.
So hot. Like, I'm sorry, but he can get it. Like, he is gorgeous at any age. I mean, he was great when he was younger, but he has aged like fine wine, let me tell you. But
I mean,
perfect for this role too. I love seeing him come back in a rom-com and not be the center main character, but a supporting character. Like, it made sense for his age. You know what I mean?
yeah. Okay. Can I give you, before we get into all of our segments that we normally go through, can I just give you a quick pros and cons of this movie and how I felt about it?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Pros, I think the scenery was just amazing. I think what modern rom-coms or modern movies today, what they can really get right is using the technology that we have today. Just get all the drones out, get everything out. I want to see the scenery, and they totally sold me. Not that they needed to, but they totally sold me on Australia.
I mean,
And
it was a love letter to Australia. Let's be
yeah,
real.
I mean, I really enjoyed. I would watch the film just to see the amazing scenery of Australia, which I'm sure is not even the most, is only a fraction of what Australia would offer. The other pros, I think, was because it is based off of a Shakespeare play. I liked how there were a lot of cast members, and I liked how each of them had their own sort of big role and made this movie flow. Because if it was just going to be, Sydney Sweeney's character, Glenn Powell's character 24/7 in this film, I don't think I could have gotten through it, not gonna lie. It was just, I'm getting into my cons. One of my cons is as much as I love those actors in their other films, I think that in this film together, I got the sense that everything was kind of rehearsed. All the lines, not that it was cringe or cheesy, but I just it felt as if each line was too rehearsed and they were saying it too much on cue. very first scene, kind of in the bathroom when Glenn Powell is saving her from, or no, is at the coffee shop and lets Sydney Sweeney's character go to the bathroom. Each line to me kind of felt like they were too quick to respond to each other, which made it seem rehearsed, if that makes sense.
It definitely did feel rehearsed. I agree with that. It felt
Yeah.
too perfect, which is definitely my critique of the meet cute moment, which we can get to.
Like we can get through Paula's qualms about the movie now and go through our segments.
Okay, so I think where you say things were too cheesy, I thought things were too extreme.
Mm. How
Like I
so?
think certain things could have been dialed back. Like it didn't need to go that far. Like, for example, when she takes off her dress to put the fire out, or when he strips fully naked when he feels the spider on him on the hike. Like, Glenn Powell, you have a beautiful body, but like that must have been so awkward to film. And also, like, taking your shirt off would have sufficed. I think there were times where it was like, okay, we are pushing it way too far because we feel like we needed to. You know what I mean?
In my mind, for rom-coms, I'm not looking to watch this kind of salacious R-rated type of movie. I'm looking for something that can, in my core, make me feel giddy, I guess, in a romantic comedy kind of way. I agree.
Okay, meet cute moment 1000% unrealistic because I have been in coffee shops before. I have been asking for the bathroom before. First of all, that if it was me, if I was Sydney Sui's character, which I have been her character, I would have just camped outside the bathroom and waited for the next person to come out and I'll wait for that freaking key. What are the odds that you meet a beautiful, single, successful man in a coffee shop like that?
Okay, wait, I'm gonna have to stop you there because I think people who go into these coffee shops, if you go to a nice coffee shop, I'm pretty sure that they would be kind of rich, successful, whatever. I'm thinking New York. A lot of
Okay.
coffee shops that I know in New York, you have to have a certain level of income to be able to go and get that coffee every
Also,
day.
everyone's too busy in New York. No one's sitting there like
Yeah.
there would be people screaming saying they don't really know each other or this is bullshit or like no one
Yeah.
would be nice in New York. Let's be real.
I do think that I want to question, maybe I should look into it. I want to know what the writers were thinking about with that scene.
Yeah.
Because I understand, I think the realistic part of that scene is needing to go to a bathroom. So you go into any restaurant and they want you to purchase something. That's
That
realistic.
is 100% realistic. I
Yeah.
agree 1000%.
And they
Or
were
you
very
get
far,
oh,
Glenn
yeah.
Powell's character and Sydney Sweeney's character, to hear that.
Yeah. It wasn't like she was screaming, she was just talking. So that was my big qualm with the meet cute moment. It felt very unrealistic. I mean, there I would love to go to a coffee shop and be begging for the bathroom and some beautiful man be like, "Do you need the key, darling?"
Yeah, yeah. And the fact
But
that he went straight to wife rather than girlfriend or anything was
yeah,
interesting.
if I was the barista, I'd be like, "Ring?" You know what I mean? Also, they just did not play it off smooth enough to be husband and wife.
Yeah, I think that's my
Also,
qualm. Is
yeah.
it's not they weren't it wasn't as smooth as the classic OG rom-coms are known to
Yeah.
be.
Also, there's no way her jeans would have dried that quickly. But fast forwarding, they get to know each other. They're revealing so much. There is this instant chemistry. The whole first date, like the grilled cheese. What has the guy ever made me anything on the first date? Also, she's going back to his house on the first date. How do you know he's not an axe murderer? I mean, he had that giant wrench in his apartment and a locked up ATM. Red flags, girlfriend. Red flags.
Yeah. I will say though that I get where the writers were going. They probably want to really speed up the beginning part so that they could introduce these two characters, put them together, have this one night, they fall in love. I want to know, okay, this is kind of a tangent, but it's very related, so please stick with me. So you know how on Instagram there's that account Meet Cute NYC or Meet Cutes London. I think they're a big account right now and they, go up to these couples who are strangers and they ask you, "How did you meet? Tell me the story." And then a lot of those stories, I would say a good percentage, they always say, "Oh, I knew that I saw this person and I was going to marry that person if they would let me." I don't know if I can. I've definitely never felt, "Oh, I'm going to marry that guy," especially just without even, knowing anything about them. But this movie kind of had that first night. if they hadn't gotten that misunderstanding, it seemed like they would have said, "Oh, this person would be my person." That
Yeah.
just does
I
not
mean, they were
happen.
acting like a married couple. I mean, when he wipes the cheese off of her face and
That was
when they're
easy.
making the grilled cheese, he did that so sweetly and so nice. I feel like a guy would just leave that on me and I'd have to sit there with like spinach in my teeth or something for like the next 20 minutes. That was just way too nice.
Anyway,
Um,
we're getting into tangents. So
we are
the
getting
meet cute
into
moment, we agree, it's unrealistic. I literally even sent you a screenshot of this guy or girl, I don't know who, on YouTube saying this is unrealistic. But our next segment, Missy, you have so many fun tidbits. I can't wait to hear more about it. Spill the popcorn.
Okay, my spill the popcorn fact is that I compared Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell to early Kate Hudson, Matthew McConaughey energy in How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. I think they're both blonde, they're both gorgeous. They both really like I think they're this generation's rom-com power couple, like Kate Hudson and Matthew McConaughey were. And I remember when this movie came out, everyone was saying Glenn Powell was the up and coming Matthew McConaughey, which is funny because here's my spill the popcorn fact. Both of them are from Texas.
Oh,
Matthew is from Uvalde and Glenn is from Austin. They both went to the University of Austin at Texas or University of Texas at Austin. So they're both Texans. And I definitely see the charm and charisma of both of them. And it really radiated to me. So that's my first spill the popcorn of this segment.
my spill the popcorn was that it was filmed by Sony Pictures and Sydney Sweeney co-produced it, which I can
Okay.
see a lot of that. And I also think that in some of the interviews that I watched her do after when they were really promoting this video after it came out, was that Sydney Sweeney always asked the cast to do fun activities outside of filming and shooting. And so I can see a lot of that camaraderie between the cast in the movie and outside. So I think the fact that she was also co-producing it, she was an executive producer, really tells in this film. But I do think that it did really well in the box office. It did the first week, I think they only did $6 million compared to what they invested for, I think around 25 million was their budget. But then it grossed over 220 million worldwide. And it has ranked past Bridget Jones' Baby, the 2016,
Oh, okay.
third one
Okay.
in terms of highest grossing R-rated rom-com. And I can't believe Bridget Jones' Baby was R-rated. I have to go double,
I'll have
but
to rewatch it.
it was technically the highest grossing Shakespeare adaptation of all time, beating Leonardo DiCaprio's Romeo and Juliet. So,
She's the man? Like, come on.
yeah, I will say again, I criticize the film a lot, but the second time knowing that it was off of the Shakespeare play made me really appreciate again, what a Shakespeare play delivers, which is a really roundabout cast. So I do like how Shakespeare plays. There's so many characters, and each of them have their own little plot twists and things. And so I think now I can appreciate the movie more, knowing that it was an ode to Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing. The last thing I'll say, though, is that I do think that for a modern day rom-com, it delivered on, having feel-good moments. I'm never gonna ever question Tasha Bedingfield's songs.
Once again, the soundtrack of this movie was prime.
Yeah, I agree. So I
And
think
I
it
love
had a
Dorian
lot of,
Sturgeon of Unwritten. So
yeah, I think it had a lot of really cute moments for, modern day rom-com. I can't wait until we review People We Meet on Vacation, which also recently came out and is another modern rom-com. But in terms of rehearsedness, that was kind of the biggest thing that I couldn't get me through the movie as fast as an OG rom-com.
I liked that it was very relevant. Like it was very on par with the times, like the jokes, like the comedic elements. It wasn't outdated. Everything was in time with what it made sense for like this millennium, this generation. For example, when he kept saying how he couldn't swim or he doesn't do cardio and she's like, "Oh my God, you're hot girl fit." Those moments just made me really laugh because I was like, I say those things. Like I felt very relatable to B in that
Yeah.
sense when she was mocking him and making these jokes about him. And I loved their banter back and forth. The energy was just really good with them. I totally separate note want to mention you mentioned all these extra characters. Pete, who plays the brother, and Roger, who plays the stepdad. I want a mini movie of just those two. They were hilarious. And then I also want the Australian boyfriend to come in, just swimming in the background while they're doing a comedic element. Like the three of them, real, especially Pete, held this movie together for me. I mean, he was the comedic relief for everything. Like he was the stop acting like a white girl, bro. He really brought them both back down. I just felt like he was really a constant heartbeat in that movie. I loved it.
Yeah. So you know your point about the extremes where, do you really need to take off your shirt to let out those flames?
Mhm.
I agree in terms of those scenes, but then I also really liked how the Aussie boyfriend literally just made such good comedic scenes where he naked taking a shower in front of Glenn Powell, whatever, doing his Australian things. And then also those comedic scenes I think are good for a rom-com, and I always laugh at those because I don't think that they would happen in real life. And if they did, people would literally look at you like you're crazy, which rom-coms can get away with. It made me think about Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Because Forgetting Sarah Marshall has so many R-rated scenes. They're funny. Even Wedding Crashers. I literally love Wedding Crashers. It is so crazy though, in terms of the scenes in Wedding Crashers. If it were filmed today, people would give so much crap, especially if it was like a character like Sydney Sweeney. I feel like people would be so negative about it, but they're also what makes rom-coms so funny is sometimes doing those crazy moments where literally I don't think could happen in real life, but
A crazy moment that I just really need to talk about and get off my chest that I don't think would happen in real life, where I think that it was a prime example of another extreme. I totally understand on the hike they're wanting to make everyone jealous and like she's nuzzling his neck and they're being super cute, but like I would never stick my hand in a man's pants like that.
yeah.
Why also did he stick his hand not on her ass, but like in her, shorts, which was funny. He joked around about how they were so tight. Like that just seemed like an extreme to me. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I get maybe like squeezing your partner's butt, like how he was originally doing, but like then they took it too far with the whole, oh, let's actually put our hands inside each other's pants.
Yeah. I think those I question, but maybe they were trying to make it more comedic.
I mean, I get that trying to make it comedic, but that's where it was like I was on board, I was loving it, and then it's like, all right, now you took it too far.
Yeah, yeah,
Now
yeah,
I
yeah.
can't relate anymore. Yeah.
You can make it R-rated in other ways.
Something I really enjoyed that I think was a nod to, I mean, I don't think it was a nod to a classic romance movie was this whole Titanic thing. Like when
Oh,
they were on
yeah,
the
that was
boat.
cheesy to me.
And they called it out though, which is what I appreciated.
Yeah.
Both characters were like, this is so cringe. This is like typical. Like I liked that they were got ahead of it and called it out, but at the same time, I was like, this is so cute. I would totally do this if I was on a yacht with my boyfriend or with my significant other. Like that's the
Yeah.
first thing that would come to my mind to do too, especially if you're in love with someone like how they're supposed to be portraying, like Sydney Sweeney said. So
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
love that. And then I I loved at the end when she falls in and he goes in after her, then the Aussie comes and he's like, wow, they're really going full Titanic.
Oh my gosh. That guy,
Of all people, the Aussie said that.
I know. Again, he needs his own little movie, but
Him, Pete, and Roger, I'm telling you, I want to see the blooper reels of those three because I guarantee you it would be insanely hilarious.
yeah. Okay. Are we missing any segments? We did spill the popcorn. We did meet cute moments. I feel as if what we always talk about too are if we could have changed one thing about the movie, but it seems like we both know what we would change from talking about this so far. I think you would say something about how it was too extreme in those scenes, and I agree because there are ways to make R-rated scenes like that really comedic. One moment that comes to mind is in The Proposal with Sandra Bullock and Ryan Reynolds. Her face literally, when they're in the room together, like they bump each other when
Yep.
they're naked. That is funny to me. The one thing that I would change is maybe less of that rehearsedness, more improv. I don't know if they did any improv, but I would love to see improv.
I want argue the other side of this, play devil's advocate here. I
Yeah.
think maybe it was because, and as you can see at the end of the movie when, they're doing the credits and you see the cast singing the song in different parts,
Yeah.
maybe that is credit to the fact that this cast was really comfortable and close with each other. I mean, if you think about it, they all had to fly to Australia and be on location together for how many months? So, in one sense, yes, it maybe was a little too robotic and rehearsed, but you could clearly tell that the cast felt comfortable with each other.
Yeah, yeah. But I still think that like the bathroom scene in this in the coffee shop, it could have been less. That scene to me could have been a little bit more authentic rather than what it was, where she literally had a 5 second screen on her of us trying to imagine ourselves in that situation. And I think she was trying to portray it across her face of, oh, this guy is doing something really nice for me. Whereas I don't know if that's going to happen in real life. If it does, if it did, I'd be very impressed. I think something that could have been a little bit more meet cute moment for this scene would have been there are so many classic coffee scenes in rom-com. Oh, you both have the same name. They get names mixed up and then you have a conversation.
Well, to go back to your original point about trying to be original for this Rotten Tomatoes score, maybe that's why they chose to do this. I just want to bring back to your point before where you said the reason why Rotten Tomatoes gives rom-coms the score that they do is because it's based on originality. And so I think to your point about this coffee shop scene, instead of just having the same name or someone picks up the wrong cup, that's why this scene was the way it was because it was different. Just devil's advocate once again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I agree.
I really loved the whole I just loved this movie and how funny it was. Like I really did. I thought it was hilarious. I loved the Serenity song that it was unwritten. I know you ask me this every episode, what's my favorite scene? Like what's the scene that would get me to get someone to watch this show or this movie, sorry. I loved the airplane scene because that
You
is so
did?
stupid and something that I would do 1,000%, but it also is insanely unrealistic. Like, there's no way he couldn't sense that someone was on top of him.
And there's no way that somebody wouldn't see that and question it.
Yes, 1,000%. But I just thought it was hilarious and I loved it how she had the cookie in her mouth, but like in reality, the cookie would have fell on him and he would have been like, what the fuck is going on? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I thought that was funny. I also, another scene that was just, I was like, fake news was when they started dancing on the boat. Nobody knows how to dance like that. That dance scene was 1,000% choreographed, honey. Because
I would be very
anytime
impressed.
I've danced with a guy at a wedding or at an event or something, it's always just like the typical little like, oh, let's move across the floor or slow dance. Nobody knows how to do that unless it was choreographed or they're a professional. So that was insanely unrealistic to me as well.
I don't know if I love it as much as you do or like it
Same.
as much as you do, but I give again, going back to my pros and cons list, the movie had a lot of good scenes in Australia that really made me feel like they did it justice. I also really liked how close I could feel the cast members
Mhm.
being, not just in the movie, but in real life. I got a lot of good chemistry. And again, all the characters had their part and they did it really well. And another spill the popcorn that I forgot to mention was that the director was Will Gluck, who
I have that as my spill the popcorn too.
directed Easy A and Friends with Benefits, which I have not watched Friends with Benefits in a long time, but Easy A, come on. I don't know if I would have known.
I think it was a great rom-com. I think he did a great job again. It was another great one for me. So I don't to me it made sense. I was like, this makes sense that this was who directed it. Because I liked those movies and I really did like this movie. I love and hated the ending because it was so predictable. But and I loved this thread though of like, oh, you have to find your moving train. And he's like, oh, I found my moving train, and then runs and jumps off the cliff. And it's like it was predictable, but it was really cute and so unrealistic. But then my favorite part was when the dad is like nose to toes and he tries to dive in. That just made me cackle so much and I just loved it. But then of course at the opera house when they reunite, which I think maybe we should send you or send Maddie the voice note that I sent you the night I watched this. When I stopped watching it, when I literally, he jumped out of the helicopter and he's running to her at the opera house. I said to you, I sent you a voice note saying, "Oh my God, he can clearly run for someone who doesn't do cardio in his hot girl fit." And then literally 10 minutes later, when they're kissing and making up, she goes, "Wow, that was a lot of cardio for you."
Yeah.
I was like, I called it.
For what, yeah, going back to your point, in terms of modern day relevance, it did have a lot of moments. Okay, this totally makes me feel as if I have a little bit of that insider secret, which always makes you feel nice if
Yeah.
you have these little things. But yeah, so I will end with the fact that this movie was good. I don't know if I'm going to watch it as much as I watch the OG classic rom-coms that I love so much.
Yeah.
But again, when I think about how it was an ode to Shakespeare, I like it a lot more. And I mean, again, I'm not ever gonna hate a rom-com. I love all rom-coms. I'm always looking for a feel-good movie with a happily ever after kind of moment. And I think that this movie had really fun, happily ever kind of teasers into maybe their lives together later on.
So funny you said that because my final note too is I don't know if you caught on to this, but when they got onto the plane to go to Australia, the flight attendant said to him, "Oh, Premier 1K or like 1K or 2K status or something." Whereas she then said to her, like, "Oh, seat 53 or whatever." A note that I made in my notes was, I hope on the way back he upgraded her to 2K to be with her and she got her own damn cookie.
Aw, I could see that happening.
But anyway, I will finish this off by saying like I said, I really liked this rom-com. It was one of my favorite rom-coms of the modern time from 2015 on. So would I go back if I saw it on the list of rom-coms to rewatch? No, I would definitely go to How to Lose a Guy or, one of our other classics like 51st Dates. So it definitely isn't a must rewatch, but it's definitely a great watchable rom-com. And I think it's great and captures the modern dating of how things work with like cell phones, social media, things like that, whereas How to Lose a Guy in those older rom-coms didn't have that at the time, so it definitely felt more relatable.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
So that's
intrigued to see what our listeners think. Are you more Missy on this or are you more Paula on this one about anyone but you? Because yeah, this one was it was a good movie, but I don't know if it's going to be my top. But in terms of modern rom-coms in the future, I would love to hear what our listeners consider to be a really good rom-com in the modern day. I know we also posted it on Instagram, but if you have any strong opinions, we'd love to hear what they are and maybe watch them. So thank you so much for listening. And Missy, any last words?
I'm happy. I'm unwritten.
Oh, thanks everyone.
Thanks, guys.